Most people live their entire lives wondering why nothing changes. They dream of success, talk about improvement, and wish for a better tomorrow. Yet each day feels like the one before it. It isn't because life has been unfair to them. It isn't because they lack talent or opportunity. It's because of one silent mistake. A mistake so subtle, most never notice it until it's too late. The mistake is drifting without clear direction. It's living each day reactively instead of purposefully. It's waking up and letting the hours unfold on their own, hoping something good will happen, but never deciding what that good is. The tragedy is not that people aim too high and miss. It's that they aim at nothing and hit it with remarkable accuracy. Every great achievement begins with a definite purpose. The man or woman who knows exactly what they want, who can describe it clearly and feels it deeply, will naturally move toward it. They will attract ideas, people, and opportunities that align with their purpose. Meanwhile, those who wander aimlessly will always find themselves busy, but rarely progressing. The world quietly rewards the focused mind. When you know where you're going, you begin to see roads that were invisible before. Your choices become clearer. You stop wasting energy on distractions and start directing your mind like a beam of light on what truly matters. But when you drift, when you fail to decide, you unconsciously hand control of your life to circumstances, to others, to luck. You become a passenger instead of the pilot. And a person who doesn't steer their life inevitably ends up somewhere they never intended to be. The cure is simple but not easy. You must decide clearly, firmly, absolutely what you want. Not what others expect, not what you think you should want, but what you truly desire deep within. Once that decision is made, you must hold it in your mind every day. Think about it, write about it, plan for it, live as though it were already yours. Success doesn't come by accident. It comes from direction, consistency, and thought. The person who avoids this one silent mistake, drifting, will rise above the crowd. The one who doesn't will stay exactly where they are, no matter how hard they work. So ask yourself, am I steering my life or am I letting it drift? The answer to that question determines everything that will follow. Most people never realize that the quiet enemy holding them back is not failure, not fear, and not lack of opportunity. It is drifting. Drifting is the habit of moving through life without a clear direction, reacting to circumstances instead of shaping them. It happens so quietly that you hardly notice it. You wake up each morning, go through your routine, handle what comes your way, and call it living. But beneath that surface activity, there is no compass guiding your choices. You are moving but not progressing. You are busy but not growing. The days pass, the months blur, and you find yourself wondering why you're still in the same place. The answer is simple. You have allowed life to decide for you because you haven't decided for yourself. The human mind is a powerful instrument, capable of achieving astonishing things when it knows where it is going. But when it lacks a destination, it becomes like a ship without a rudder, tossed by the winds of other people's opinions, the tides of circumstances, and the storms of uncertainty. You cannot drift toward success, just as a ship cannot drift toward a harbor. Every achievement in history, every breakthrough, every life of meaning, began when someone stopped drifting and made a definite decision about what they wanted. That decision became their compass. It directed their thoughts, filtered their actions, and shaped their habits. Without it, even the most talented individual will remain lost in the fog of uncertainty. Drifting begins subtly. It starts when you postpone decisions, telling yourself you'll figure it out later. It deepens when you accept the routines that keep you comfortable but unfulfilled. Before long, you mistake movement for meaning. You tell yourself that because you are working hard, you must be going somewhere. Yet deep down, there is an uneasy feeling. A quiet voice reminding you that all your effort is leading nowhere specific. That voice is your mind trying to wake you up, trying to remind you that motion without purpose is the slow death of potential. When you drift, you let external forces write your story. The opinions of others start to shape your identity. You do what is expected, not what is meaningful. You follow the crowd, not your conviction. And the longer you do it, the harder it becomes to imagine a different path. Drifting dulls your imagination. It weakens your ambition. It convinces you that where you are is all you can be. The tragedy is not that people fail, it is that they settle into patterns of aimless living and call it normal. The cure to drifting is clarity. The moment you decide what you want, truly want, your mind begins to reorganize itself around that goal. Ideas start to appear that were invisible before. You begin to notice opportunities that align with your decision. Your energy changes direction, your days gain structure, and your thoughts become disciplined. The same 24 hours that once felt empty now begin to feel meaningful because every action carries intention. This is the quiet power of purpose. It transforms the ordinary into the essential. Avoiding the silent mistake of drifting requires constant awareness. You must remind yourself daily of where you're going and why. The mind left unattended naturally slips back into comfort and repetition. But a mind guided by purpose stays awake. It questions, it plans, it acts, and with every deliberate thought, you move closer to the life you were meant to live instead of the one that simply happens to you. Clarity is the foundation of all progress. Without it, even the most determined effort scatters into confusion and frustration. When you are clear about what you want, your thoughts align, your actions organize, and your energy flows in a single direction. But when you are uncertain, your mind becomes divided, your focus weakens, and you end up chasing too many things at once, never mastering any of them. Clarity is not something you stumble upon. It's something you create deliberately through thought, reflection, and decision. It is the act of sitting down with yourself and asking, without excuses or fear, what do I truly want, until the answer reveals itself. Most people never do this. They assume they already know what they want: more money, more comfort, more respect. But these are vague desires, not clear objectives. They are general wishes that lack substance. Clarity demands specificity. It asks you to define your destination so precisely that your mind can see it. When you know exactly what you want, your subconscious begins to work on it constantly. It notices things, connects ideas, and brings you into contact with people who can help you reach that vision. This is not magic. It is simply how the human mind operates when it has direction. The moment you become clear, your world changes. Decisions become easier because you can instantly measure every choice against your purpose. You stop wasting time on what doesn't matter because you now know what does. Clarity filters your life. It eliminates the unnecessary and strengthens your discipline. The person who lacks clarity is easily distracted because everything seems equally important. The person who possesses it moves with quiet confidence, unaffected by noise, because they have already decided where they're going. Clarity also gives birth to belief. When your goal is vague, belief cannot take root because there is nothing specific to believe in. But when your goal is vivid, when you can see it, imagine it, and feel it, faith begins to grow naturally. You begin to trust your path, even when progress is slow, because you can see the direction clearly. People often mistake clarity for luxury, as if it is something you discover once life becomes easier. In truth, it is the very tool that makes life easier. The more uncertain your circumstances, the more essential clarity becomes. The process of gaining clarity requires honesty. You must be willing to look beyond what others expect from you and see what truly calls to you. Many people live according to borrowed dreams, chasing careers or lifestyles that were never theirs to begin with. They inherit definitions of success from family, society, or culture and wonder why their victories feel hollow. Real clarity emerges only when you strip away everything that isn't yours and listen to the quiet, persistent desire that has been within you all along. That is the true compass of your life. Once clarity is established, your thoughts begin to organize themselves around it like iron filings around a magnet. You start to think in terms of cause and effect. Every decision is weighed by how it moves you closer or farther from your purpose. Even challenges begin to appear differently. Instead of obstacles, they become part of the path. Lessons designed to refine you for the destination you have chosen. Clarity doesn't remove problems, it gives them meaning. It transforms confusion into focus, frustration into patience, and fear into purpose. In the end, clarity creates momentum. It draws life toward you because everything about your being, your thoughts, your energy, your attitude moves in harmony. When you are clear, you no longer chase success, you attract it. You become magnetic to opportunities aligned with your vision, because your mind, your actions, and your spirit are all moving in the same direction. One of the greatest illusions people live under is the belief that being busy is the same as being productive. The truth is, business is often a disguise for confusion. Many people fill their days with endless activity, checking boxes, responding to demands, rushing from one task to another, yet feeling no real sense of progress. They convince themselves they are moving forward because they are exhausted at the end of the day. But movement without direction is merely motion, not advancement. The world is full of people who work hard but go nowhere, not because they lack effort, but because their effort is scattered. The danger of this illusion is that it keeps you trapped in a cycle of doing instead of achieving. Business can be comforting because it gives the feeling of importance. It distracts you from the uncomfortable question of whether what you are doing truly matters. When you are constantly occupied, you don't have to face the silence that asks, am I working towards something meaningful? Yet, deep down, there is always a faint dissatisfaction, a quiet sense that something vital is missing. That feeling is the mind's way of warning you that you've mistaken movement for meaning. It is possible to spend years like this, running at full speed on a treadmill of trivial tasks, mistaking fatigue for fulfillment. True productivity begins with clarity of purpose. When you know what you want, every action becomes measured, deliberate, and connected to an outcome. You stop trying to do everything and start doing the few things that matter. The person who understands their purpose can accomplish more in a focused hour than a confused person can in a week of relentless activity. The secret lies in intention. A clear intention gives weight to your actions. Without it, you can exert energy endlessly and still remain in the same place. The illusion of business is strengthened by the way society rewards appearance over results. People are praised for being hardworking, always on the move, or constantly hustling. Yet few stop to ask whether that movement is leading anywhere worthwhile. Success is not found in constant motion, but in correct direction. The seed doesn't grow because it is restless, it grows because it is planted in the right soil, nurtured by patience and purpose. Similarly, progress doesn't come from endless doing, it comes from doing what aligns with your vision. To escape the trap of business, one must learn to pause and reflect. Reflection is not laziness. It is the act of aligning your compass before the next step. People who rush without reflection often work against themselves, fixing problems they created by moving too quickly. The calm mind that takes time to think and plan is far more powerful than the frantic mind that constantly reacts. When you pause to question your actions, you begin to see how much of your activity serves no real purpose. It takes courage to slow down in a world that glorifies speed, but clarity always rewards those who choose depth over haste. A person who understands the difference between motion and progress learns to measure their days not by how much they did, but by how far they moved toward their vision. This shift in perspective changes everything. You begin to evaluate tasks differently. You stop saying yes to every request and start protecting your focus. You no longer need to prove your worth through business because your results begin to speak for themselves. Time becomes your ally instead of your enemy. You work less on what doesn't matter and more on what creates meaning. The illusion of business fades the moment you reconnect with purpose. When you act with intention, you no longer need to rush. Each step carries power because it is guided by vision, not pressure. In that state, life stops feeling like a race and starts feeling like a creation, where every effort builds toward something that truly matters. The mind has a quiet but extraordinary power to attract what it consistently thinks about. Whatever picture you hold with feeling and persistence begins to shape your behavior, your environment, and even the people who cross your path. This isn't a mystery or a miracle. It's the natural law of focus. When you concentrate your thoughts on a single purpose, your subconscious begins to filter everything you see and experience through that purpose. You start to notice patterns, opportunities, and ideas that were always there but invisible to the unfocused mind. It's as if the world rearranges itself to match the dominant image in your mind. This is why clarity and repetition of thought are so essential, because the mind can only attract what it's fixed upon. Every invention, every discovery, every personal transformation began in thought. Before the airplane lifted from the ground, it existed in the imagination of a man who refused to let go of the image. Before a business, a work of art, or a goal took physical form, it lived first in the unseen world of the mind. Most people underestimate this principle. They think success is purely physical hard work, effort, struggle, without realizing that work itself is only powerful when it follows thought. The mind is the blueprint, action is the construction. Without the mental design, effort is random, wasteful, and exhausting. When you hold a clear picture of what you want, your mind begins to organize everything to bring it into reality. It influences your choices, shapes your conversations, and directs your energy. You may think you are simply following instinct or coincidence, but what's truly happening is the alignment of your inner world with the outer one. You start to attract situations and people who resonate with your dominant state of mind. A person who constantly thinks in terms of fear and limitation attracts circumstances that confirm those thoughts. A person who dwells on progress and possibility attracts chances to grow and advance. The law is simple, like attracts like, and thought is the first cause. Most people, however, allow their minds to wander. They fill their consciousness with scattered thoughts, contradictions, and distractions. One day they desire success, the next they doubt they deserve it. One moment they believe in their abilities, the next they surrender to fear. The mind cannot attract powerfully under such conditions because it is divided. To attract anything worthwhile, you must think with consistency and conviction. The clearer and more emotionally charged your image, the stronger its pull becomes. The mind doesn't respond to empty wishes. It responds to belief, persistence, and repetition. The magnetism of the mind grows with attention. Each time you visualize your goal and feel it as real, you strengthen the signal you send out. Over time, your subconscious begins to behave as though it were already true. You make decisions aligned with that new reality, and your outer world starts to reflect the inner change. What people call luck or coincidence is often the natural result of mental focus sustained long enough to influence action and perception. When you fix your mind on something with deep conviction, You start to meet the right people at the right time, find the right ideas, and create the right habits without forcing them. The world is not waiting to reward wishful thinking. It responds to focused intention. The person who trains their mind to think in harmony with their goals becomes a magnet for results. Every thought is a seed, and the soil of the mind grows whatever is planted there, whether good or bad. This is why discipline of thought is the first requirement of success. When you master what you allow to occupy your mind, you master what you attract into your life. The outer world is merely the reflection of what you continually hold in the inner world, and every life eventually mirrors the quality of its dominant thoughts. Indecision is one of the most subtle but destructive habits a person can develop. It doesn't show itself as loudly as failure or laziness. It creeps in quietly, disguised as caution, logic, or waiting for the right time. But every moment spent in hesitation drains momentum. Every opportunity delayed through uncertainty fades away. The mind that cannot decide remains paralyzed, unable to commit to a single direction. People tell themselves they are being careful when in truth they are simply afraid to choose. Yet by refusing to choose, they make the worst choice of all: stagnation. The cost of indecision is rarely felt in an instant. It accumulates slowly until one day you realize years have passed and nothing has changed. When you fail to decide, life decides for you. Circumstances take control and you become reactive instead of creative. The people who shape the world are not always the smartest or the most talented. They are simply the ones who made up their minds. They chose a direction and began moving, even when the path wasn't perfect. The indecisive wait for certainty, but certainty never comes. Life rewards movement, not hesitation. The person who acts in faith will always gain more knowledge, more experience, and more strength than the one who waits endlessly for the right moment. Progress favors the bold because the act of deciding creates clarity. Indecision weakens the spirit. It creates inner conflict and mental exhaustion. When your mind is divided between possibilities, your energy splits as well. You cannot give your full strength to anything when half of you is always questioning what might have been. Decision, on the other hand, unites the mind. It gives direction to thought and power to action. The instant you decide, the fog begins to lift. Even if the decision is imperfect, it's better than endless wavering, because you can always adjust your course once you're in motion. But you cannot steer a ship that refuses to leave the shore. The habit of indecision often grows from fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of losing what's familiar. Yet all progress requires some loss of comfort. The irony is that people cling to indecision to avoid pain, but in doing so, they create the slow pain of regret. Life does not stay still. Every day you postpone a choice, your potential narrows just a little more. You lose momentum, confidence, and belief in your own ability to act. The mind begins to doubt its power because it keeps proving to itself that it cannot decide. The longer you delay, the heavier the next decision becomes. Freedom comes from commitment. The moment you make a decision, you reclaim your power. You stop waiting for conditions to be perfect and start shaping them yourself. Decision strengthens your identity because it declares who you are and what you stand for. It simplifies life by removing confusion. Once you decide, you no longer waste time comparing paths. You walk one. You no longer need approval. You trust your vision. Every great success story begins with a moment of choice, a quiet instant when someone said, "I will." From that point on, the world begins to rearrange itself around that intention. The cost of indecision is invisible but enormous. It steals time, confidence, and opportunity. It keeps dreams locked in potential form, never allowed to take shape in the real world. People who never decide are left to watch those who do, wondering why luck favors them. But luck is simply the reward of decision and motion. Each choice you make builds strength. Each commitment sharpens purpose. And with every decisive act, your life begins to move from hesitation to momentum, from uncertainty to control, from what could be to what is. Deciding what you want is only the first step. Living that decision with unwavering commitment is what transforms your life. Many people make decisions, but few truly commit. They make promises to themselves that dissolve when the first challenge appears. They begin with enthusiasm, but abandon their course at the first sign of difficulty. Real commitment means something deeper. It means binding yourself to a goal so strongly that giving up is no longer an option. It means building your life around your decision until it becomes part of your identity. When you reach that point, your energy no longer scatters, doubts begin to fade, and your actions take on a new level of strength. The power of commitment lies in its ability to focus the mind. When you commit to something fully, your thoughts no longer wander from one possibility to another. You no longer waste time debating whether you made the right choice. You've made it, and now every ounce of your attention moves toward making it work. The human mind becomes unstoppable when it stops entertaining alternatives. Every invention, every masterpiece, every success story was created by someone who refused to entertain the thought of quitting. Commitment builds resilience because it transforms obstacles into necessities rather than reasons to retreat. Most people never discover their full strength because they live in a halfway state, half decided, half believing, half working. They hold back a little energy, a little faith, a little trust, keeping something in reserve in case they fail. But that safety net becomes their cage. True commitment demands that you burn the bridges behind you so that the only path left is forward. It is only when you remove the option of retreat that your true potential awakens. When your mind realizes there is no way back, it begins to find solutions, ideas, and energy that were hidden before. Commitment also creates consistency. Success is never the result of one grand act, but the accumulation of small, persistent efforts repeated over time. The committed person shows up on the days they feel inspired and on the days they feel empty. They keep the promise long after the excitement has faded. Each time you keep going when you could have stopped, you build inner strength. That strength compounds, becoming character. It is the difference between those who wish and those who achieve. Wishing is easy, committing is costly. But the price of commitment is far less than the price of regret. There is a quiet dignity in the person who has made a firm decision and stands by it through all seasons. They move differently. They no longer depend on motivation because they are powered by purpose. Their will becomes their anchor, holding them steady when conditions change. Challenges that break the uncommitted only strengthen the committed. Each obstacle becomes proof of their resolve. The mind begins to treat every difficulty as part of the process rather than a reason to stop. That shift in perspective is what separates progress from stagnation. When you truly commit, the world begins to respond. Opportunities align, people appear, and circumstances start to move in your favor because your energy becomes consistent. Life seems to favor those who know what they want and refuse to quit. The reason is simple: commitment sends a signal of seriousness, and everything in life responds to seriousness. Your subconscious works harder for you, others begin to trust your direction, and success starts to take shape from the persistence of your effort. Commitment is the bridge between intention and realization. It is what transforms goals into results, dreams into reality. The person who learns to decide and then commit without hesitation becomes unstoppable. They no longer live at the mercy of changing moods or external conditions. Their power comes from within. A steady, focused determination that no obstacle can weaken.